Hey there everybody, it's Mark Curley. I'm back with another How to Draw video. Today I'm going to be showing you how to draw an explosion, although it's going to involve painting and other types of mixed media, really. And I thought this might be a good one to do full color. So I'm going to go ahead and begin with some very loose guidelines. My concept with this one is to do one of these classic Hollywood movie guy walking away from an explosion illustrations. He is too cool to turn around and look back. So I'm beginning really with just some very loose pencil-y guidelines that are showing me the extent of where this explosion is going to be, sort of cloud-like curving lines here that are really just laying the very basic, most basic of guidelines. I think when it comes to drawing an explosion, what people are having troubles with is maybe not so much this aspect of drawing lines around the edge of it, but getting the tones and colors and shading dropped in there in such a way so as to make it really look like an actual explosion like you see in the movies or some such thing like that. So what I'm doing here is really just getting these beginning guidelines in place, and then what I'm going to do is move on to a very light layer of yellow watercolor to get started. So let's go ahead and switch to that. Alright, so I've grabbed a brush here, and with watercolor, yellow watercolor that has quite a lot of water in it that makes it rather light, I'm going in and putting an initial first little layer of fairly pale yellow along the edge of this first line that I drew. Now, I mean, the nice thing about this lesson as compared to a lot of my How to Draw lessons is that it doesn't require incredible amounts of precision. I mean, what you're doing here can be fairly loosely done. It's not like anyone's going to say, hey, that line is in the wrong place. You know, there's something fairly random about a drawing of an explosion, and certainly compared to, like, say, a drawing of a face or something like that. That you don't have to worry too much about where you're putting this, just a matter of getting a fairly similar combination of colors here. Now, as I said, maybe the crucial thing about this aspect of the drawing is to keep it light. You don't want to go too dark right from the beginning. And notice again that it is sort of along the edges. I'm not going to put a whole lot of this yellow right in the middle of the illustration. In fact, the very most intense part of a drawing of an explosion tends to just stay white toward the middle, and it'll be the white of the page, although I may go in with a little gouache later on. It's going to be the white of the page that really is appearing to be the most intense part of the blast. Now, I had kind of a first layer in there, and I'm just going to maybe put in a little bit of a secondary layer right on top of it as it's drying, just to give us a few, almost a little more of a splotchy tone to some of this. But I am going to be kind of halting this watercolor process pretty early on, and I would say most of the heavy lifting in terms of conveying this sense of a real explosion is going to be done by way of pastel. In fact, I suspect this lesson may have more pastel work than anything I've done before, because pastel lends itself to this foggy, imprecise tone, which is precisely kind of what you see when you see a photograph of an explosion. So I think I've kind of dropped in enough. I might put in a few just little random yellow dots here and there before I declare this part of the process done. But don't want to get too much color right there behind him, because that's going to be the sort of epicenter of this explosion. And at this point, I feel like I've done about as much as I want to do with the watercolor. I'm going to switch now to pastels, allowing a little bit of time for this to dry. Whatever is still wet here, I'm just going to give that a little time to dry, and then I'll be back with the pastels. Okay, so I've pulled out an orange pastel here, kind of a dry, chalky pastel. Be careful that you don't attempt this with oil pastel, because oil pastels don't blur quite as much on the page as these chalky ones do in terms of creating a very smoky kind of a blur. So I'm adding in some orange to these edges. I want to take care not to add orange absolutely everywhere where I already put yellow. I think when you look at photos of actual explosions, the sort of more intense colored areas are distributed throughout the explosion, not in an even way, but in a way that looks a little bit sort of random. So I'm kind of challenging myself to drop in little bits of orange here and there, but not automatically put them everywhere. Now, one of the things about, I think, illustrating an explosion as I'm doing it, you know, my method of doing it is to get the order right. You know, one of the things that I know I'm going to be doing eventually is adding a lot of debris that's sort of flying out from the explosion. But that stuff is best saved until the end. It's going to be very dark and you know, these little black bits and so forth. If I put those in now, then I'm going to be trying to I'll be trying to work around them with this stuff, you know. So I think really figuring out your order, going, you know, generally speaking, from light to dark, is pretty crucial. So I've got this orange stuff pretty much where I think it needs to be. What I'm going to do now is switch to an even darker reddish orange to sort of intensify further some of these areas. All right, so I don't know if it'll be readily apparent, but this is actually a sort of darker, more red-colored orange. And as I said before, kind of continuing with that idea of not putting it in everywhere, I'm trying to pick and choose certain areas that are going to get this darker treatment. And I even have here at the ready a kind of a brown, which for me is going to be the very darkest area probably that I do in pastel. Although I'm going to be coloring in quite a lot of this with black, sort of making this like a nighttime scene. My idea being that if I do it at night and this is all jet black around the edge, it'll really make this explosion pop, you know, in a dramatic way. So I think I will go ahead now and switch from the reddish orange to a kind of a brown here. And this is something that I noticed when I was looking at a photograph from like a Hollywood movie, is that there were parts of the explosion that were kind of like a brownish color, which is maybe not something that I would have thought of in terms of doing an explosion. But it certainly is going to help, I think, as we get further along with here in terms of making this look like a, like I said, something you would see in a Hollywood movie. One thing I wonder about with I'm drawing this guy calmly walking away with an explosion of this size behind him, I will look in the comment section to see people who say he would be blown forward by the, you know, the intensity of that blast would send him flying. He would not be just like waltzing away. Oh yeah, just another day blowing stuff up. So let me know about that, those of you who know about explosions and how they actually work. But I think we've kind of got enough of this. I might start switching now from the pastel to a little bit of colored pencil, just to show you how you can kind of tighten things up a little with colored pencil. I always just, for whatever reason, I enjoy mixing together different types of materials and seeing what different effects they create. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of this with colored pencil. Okay, so I've grabbed a yellow colored pencil here, and I think what I'm going to do here is just get, because colored pencil is more precise than pastel, I'm going to take advantage of that to create some sort of smaller pockets of yellow dots that just sort of symbolize some variety in the surface of that of this explosion, if that makes any sense. Doesn't explosion have a surface? Clearly, you are inventing things that don't exist in the realm of physics. But I find that just sort of tightening this up a little bit will somehow make this explosion look more real, a little more photographic. And there's probably, I mean, almost certainly different types of explosion, like a gasoline explosion is probably going to look different from just TNT, for example, or something like that. So you, if you want to get real precise about it, you probably are going to have to investigate, you know, the different types of explosions and what they look like. I think for my purposes, I'm just going for that good old-fashioned Hollywood huge, massive explosion that the action hero calmly walks away from. Gotta work on my sound effects there. Anyway, I think you get the basic idea of what I'm trying to do with this. Let me do a little bit of this in time-lapse. I'm going to finally kick it into time-lapse a bit before we come back and maybe get into doing some of the debris that I was talking about. Okay, so I've pulled out a brown pencil, which I was actually using to tighten up or darken up some of these more intense orangish areas. But now I want to do some of the fun part of adding in little bits of flying debris. And I really am sort of being able to cut loose in this video and do things in quite a random way. It's refreshing, I must say, because usually a lot of drawings require a great deal of precision. Of like, oh, did this line, I should have put this line just a little further to the left or something like that. This, doing an explosion, by definition, almost involves a random distribution of dots and so forth. And so you may find, if you've struggled with some of my other lessons, you may find that this is fairly easy to follow along with. You almost can't get it wrong. As long as you just try to build things up in the order that I have done. Really the challenge, and it can be surprisingly challenging, to create something that really looks random. I think you tend to create some kind of a pattern almost instinctively or in spite of yourself. And the challenge is to create something truly random where these things are not evenly distributed, and you end up with more of them in one area and less of them in another area. I feel like I need maybe a little more variety in terms of the shapes of these things that I'm creating, these little bits of, you know, destroyed wood or whatever it is. Who knows what it is? Let me know. What was back there that he blew up so spectacularly? But not spectacularly enough to make him turn around and look at it. He's too cool for that. But anyway, you can kind of see what I'm doing here. I chose to use a brown pencil to start dropping these things in here, but I am going to intensify a few of them at least with black. I'm going to go to jet black on some of the debris. But let me go ahead and do some of this in time-lapse so as not to put you all to sleep. And then we'll come back and maybe choose a few of these little pieces of debris to make darker with the black colored pencil. All right, so I drew most of that debris in brown, and then I actually went in and sort of added a little more color by way of pastel and colored pencils and so forth. But now I'm going back in with my black Prismacolor to choose a few of these select pieces of debris and make them jet black, or much darker anyway. And this will be one of the finishing touches, really, that completes the effect of this explosion. Again, I can never say too many times, if you want to learn how to draw something realistically, look for photo reference. There's nothing wrong with examining what do these things look like in real life. Surely you don't want to go out and blow something up so as to create your own photo reference. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. But look on the internet for like movie explosions and so forth, and yeah, that's going to really show you how to give your illustration of an explosion added authenticity. Well, one final thing that I want to do, and you may be surprised to see that the effect of this explosion is greatly enhanced just by darkening in the area outside of it. Like I said, sort of turning this into a nighttime scene. So I'm going to do that this time pretty much all in time-lapse, because it is going to be a a slow process. But then I'll come back and maybe have a few final words about this lesson. Alright, well you can see I did quite a lot of stuff during this last phase, using black pastel to darken in this area. And then I found near the edge of the explosion, you could have a sort of transitional area where it gets rather orange colored rather than going straight into the black. And I've been doing all kinds of things here, adding in little extra bits of broken debris, and now it's really time for me to go back into this figure. Although this lesson is not supposed to be about drawing the figure, the character, but I find that having completed the illustration, we really need to darken this up quite a bit so as to have him fitting into the illustration. It's too light, basically, at this stage. My initial colors that I put down here. And you find this a lot when you're working on illustrations, that you have to go back and darken in areas that looked good earlier on, and now just balance it out in terms of the other stuff that you've done. I think he would definitely be airborne with an explosion of that size behind. Let's just say that he is a celestial being. Or a superhero or something, and that's why this explosion is not affecting him. But I'm going to go ahead and finally do one last thing of time-lapse, mainly focusing on darkening in this character, and then finally we can come back and wrap up this video. Alright, well, we're finally at the end of this video. You can see I did a lot of stuff at the end here, darkening in the figure in the foreground, and even going back in with some watercolor into the explosion itself. It's really a lot of fun. I enjoyed doing this one because, like I said, you're free to sort of experiment and put things where you want to. I would say mainly just leave the white of the page right there in the center of the explosion. It's kind of ironic you spend all of this time fine-tuning the edges, and it's the white, the blank of the page in the middle, that really kind of looks impressive when in fact you didn't even touch that part of the illustration. But for now, let me go ahead and thank anyone who has supported me by getting any of my books. We got Brody's Ghost, Book 4. Finally, I can bring it out at the end of my videos. Miki Falls and Mastering Manga, my How to Draw book. I really do greatly appreciate anyone who supports me by getting any of those books. But let's go ahead and lay down this colored pencil. That sounded weird. I want to thank you all for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back with another one real soon.